The Shark Deck.
I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, and big-time Mets fan Jerry Seinfeld is warming up to the Phillies. Jerry, what the hell, dude? Jerry spoke to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Jerry's playing Philadelphia tonight at the Met, and they asked him, what do you hate more, watching the Mets lose or watching the Phillies win? Jerry answered that he really liked Bryce Harper storming up the third baseline last week to yell at Angel Hernandez, who's an umpire. A lot of people don't think Angel Hernandez is a good umpire. I'll leave it at that. Jerry said, that was so Philly. That was so great. The interviewer was like, rivalry? No? Jerry said, I don't think so. I don't know what happened to it. But these things can always kindle at any time. It's all about weird personalities. They pointed out there's a TV show called Seinfeld. There's an episode called The Boyfriend. Keith Hernandez episode. You've seen this? Yes, that takes place at a Mets vs. Phillies game. Jerry said, just seemed like a very classic rivalry at that time. I don't know if there's much of that left today. Once my team is out, I just pick another team. I base it on watching them play. I like the Phillies this year. They're exciting. Great energy. Jerry, no. Pick somebody else. What are you doing? Jerry says he loves Northeast attitudes and Northeast humor. My friend Kevin Hart always tells me, if you can get laughs in Philly, you're ready to go anywhere. Of course, that's the New York cliche, but it's also true of Philly. Their audience is very discriminating, and they know their stuff. Philly is the greatest food, says Jerry. Philly and Chicago are, I think, the best food cities I go to. I think I agree. I love Chicago food, too. And I was down in suburban Philly last night and had a delicious cheesesteak that I couldn't even finish, and I can finish food. That's me talking, not Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry said, somebody will always recommend something I haven't heard of, some gyros sandwich place or something, and I love doing that. I wonder if Jerry said gyros, I'm reading a text here, or if he just said gyros. Jerry's from Queens. I'm sure he just said gyros. Jay Leno was asked, at this stage of your career, are there things you find funny now that maybe you didn't before? Interesting answer. Leno said, it's actually the other way around. It's stuff that we found funny before that you can't do now. But it's not bad like everything else. In old days, there were women and gay jokes, and it's probably better that we don't do those anymore. I think you can tease and poke fun at people. It's a classic case of if they're laughing with you and you're not laughing at them, I don't find it that hard. Everybody likes being teased, and that sense of humor, you have to know when you cross the line, and it's a fine line in comedy. Bill Burr told the Canton Rep that I don't do rehearsed stand-up as much as you would think. It's more I go out and live a life, and then I have stuff to talk about. It took me forever to learn that. I'm always the butt of the family jokes, except with my wife, and she can take it. Now, if you go see Bill Burr says, what's great is you're going to hear a bunch of stuff that maybe you don't want to hear, and maybe you can experience something different and laugh and learn something or not like something and then like the next thing. Bill talked about playing big venues like Fenway Park or Madison Square Garden. It's unbelievable. It doesn't make any sense. You definitely have imposter syndrome before you go out there. At least I did before I started playing bigger venues. As crazy as it sounds, I've kind of gotten used to it. I approach it the same way as when I was playing half-filled comedy clubs. Sam Morill was on the Creative Control podcast. Creative with a K, Control with a K. Is Sam doing political comedy? He says, I look at it as social commentary. I don't think it's political. I'm not condemning either side, really. When I think of a political comic, I think they're leaning hard into one side, and I don't like that. I like that people from both sides can come to my show. I don't think it's my job to tell people how to think, but then inevitably certain bits will have an angle and a stance, but I don't like to hammer people with it. I think it feels more political, and I don't like partisan comedy. Look, I dabble. Occasionally you have one, you're like, this is going to tick someone off, but I just think it's really funny, so F it. I think there's fun in making fun of everyone, and I think I'm not doing it in such a harsh way that the person getting hit shouldn't laugh at it, but that's kind of the type of comedy that got me into comedy. When I was a kid, my mom saw me laughing on my Discman. She was like, what is he listening to? I was so young, she grabbed my headphones, put it on. It was Chris Rock's album, Roll with the New, and I saw this look of horror come over my mom's face, followed by her laughing, and I was like, wow, that's beautiful that Chris Rock has the ability to push you there. You know what I mean? That's when I fell in love with Rock's comedy at such a young age. He was so good at ticking you off in the setup and at making you howl with laughter at the end of the joke. I mean, it's my favorite type of joke. Bert Kreischer was out surfing. He shared some video of it. This from surfermagazine.com, your home for comedy news. Apparently, Bert did okay. This article's in English, and I'm reading it, and I'm like, I don't know what we're talking about. Bert was so stoked, he posted on Instagram and name-dropped a few North Shore rippers. Dude, I'm tagging Nathan Florence in this. I'm tagging all the guys. And apparently, he tagged Florence, Rothman, and Jamie O'Brien. Surfers are like, yeah, of course he did. All right, let's look more at the Vulture list of the comedians you should and will know in 2023. 25 comics who industry insiders predict will be tomorrow's superstars. Stavros Halkias, I feel like he's been kind of visible. Yes? No? Yes? Yes. His 2022 special Live at the Lodge Room is full of material on his favorite pleasure centers: bodies, his body, sex, his sex life, threesomes, food, drugs, and self-loathing. He has another special on the way. He's been posting clips of his crowd work for the last year and recently put them together as a half-hour crowd work-only special. Gary Goldman's not going to like that. Rob Hayes is certain he'd be famous by now if he had an interesting story. He tells a joke. Hayes says, "I would go to church," and they'd be like, "God doesn't give you more than you can handle." And he says, "I'm like, yo, God thinks I'm weak." His Brian Regan-esque knack for attacking subjects from multiple angles was put to great use in 2021 when Hayes and Jamel Johnson created Sneak This, a sneaker-centric sketch show. Say that 3 times fast. I got it in the first try, sort of. Didn't do an edit there. They did that for Bleacher Report Kicks, that covered everything from engineering a robot to buy sneakers online to the excuses sneakerheads use to justify their spending. That sounds like a ton of fun. Jordan Jensen is fond of saying she's like this because she was, quote, raised by a pack of lesbians. She slouches, pulls faces, speaks with a growl, and interrupts herself, punctuates thoughts with the word dude. She is not prim. Jokes are often gloriously gross. She's obsessed with sex, unseemly behavior, and all the thoughts that should be too unpleasant or uncomfortable to say out loud. Andrea Jin says Vulture is the poster child for Gen Z comedy. Online, she's a slightly messy older sister type, speaking to TikTok in its native language by talking about core memories and past lives regression. On stage, she's drolly yet fashionable, seeming a little bit bored by the act of speaking and slightly offended when people laugh at her. A very fun bit for a comedian to have. One more. Rachel Cayley. Vulture writes, Judaism, being gay, mental illness. These are but some of the foundations on which so much comedy is built, but few minds are able to combine these ingredients into a rich, humorous borscht quite like a Rachel Cayley. Cayley's delivery often sounds like thinking out loud, unsettling stand-up cliches, intentionally stripped of polish, particularly when she records in unlikely places like their apartment or on the side of the road. 10-minute special about airplane on airplane is filmed from an economy window seat. I want to be respectful here. I'm not familiar with Rachel, and the Vulture article is using both the pronouns she and they. The parts I read there, I read as they had it written, and that is an awkward thing to take into the commercial break. So let me add one more. Edie Modica. If you're like, who's that? Did you watch Jury Duty? You know, the main woman that the Jury Duty guy is kind of palling around with, and maybe they're going to hook up? That's who Edie Modica is. Modica's characterization of Jeannie as the character brushes right up next to the line of Too Far. She's full of sexually inappropriate quips, touchy, and often a ridiculous mess. And yet, her performance is layered and thoughtful enough to keep it just barely in bounds. Dan Harmon's a little stressed about this Community movie because once the actor strike ends, there's some pretty big people in Community. Donald Glover's a lot more in demand than he was when he first played Troy. Alison Brie gets a lot of work. You know what I'm saying here? So Harmon says, the thing that's going to matter most to me as an audience member, to anybody who loved that show, is seeing that people see each other and they still love each other, and it's not going to feel the same if you're shooting them separately at different months in different locations. I hate to say how terrified I am to do it wrong, because there's part of me that knows that fear can't possibly result in a good thing. And you're not going to get anywhere doing an impression of what you think you should do or what you think they want, but I really don't want to do it wrong, and it's truly terrifying. But then I'm holding on to the hope that being honest with myself about how scared I am is at least a way to break the cycle. The Groundlings will be hosting a musical improv fundraiser at the Performing Arts Center in Vista Del Mar on October 26th. It's The Groundlings one night only. What is this? They're trying to raise money for the Motion Picture and Television Fund. It will see stars like Will Forte and a guest star, Kristen Wiig, Michaela Watkins, Kristen Bell, Jim Rash, the dean from Community, and a bunch of others. The show is called One Night Only. It will see a full production of a Broadway musical with the improvisers getting their scripts with 1 day's notice. That's fun. October 26th. This weekend, it's the Because They're Funny Comedy Festival. That'll be at the Wharf in Washington, D.C. The comedy event will feature a competition to determine the Breakout Comedian of the Year, a woman-focused comedy special, and a homecoming lineup featuring black comedians from D.C. Jeff Friday is one of the organizers and says what we're trying to do now is really spearhead who's the next Monique, who's the next D.L. Hughley. D.C. is probably the smartest, most interesting city in the country, you know? It's not Miami Beach, but this is a really special city. Tonight, it's the Breakout Comedian of the Year competition hosted by D.C. Youngfly. Saturday, Hey Ladies, Fierce Female Comedy Show. That'll include performances by Luenell, Nicole Byer, Ego Nwodum, and Aida Rodriguez. That's a good show. Sunday, the DMV Black Comedy Homecoming Show, hosted by Yvonne Orgy, features Tommy Davidson, Donnell Rawlings, Tony Woods, and some others. DCist pointed out, notably, Dave Chappelle is not on any lineup during the weekend. They asked about it, and the answer is, Dave's on a tour, so he's not in a lineup. We're hoping he'll come. A lot of people invited that aren't on a lineup. And yeah, same answer. That's why Dave Chappelle's not on today's podcast. And that's your comedy news for today. Tell a friend about the show, will you? And follow the show for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your shows. See you tomorrow.